This video is the most complete video on the non-volley zone rule. By the end of this video, you will not only understand the non-volley zone rule, you'll understand all of its parts, and you'll be able to win any argument that has to do with the non-volley zone rule. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to set up 4 different scenarios. These are very common scenarios that I get asked about all the time. Then we're going to tell you the rule that applies in those scenarios, and you're going to be able to test yourself to tell us whether you think there was a fault or not a fault. At the end of each one, I'll tell you what the answer is. You can check yourself against it. Again, by the end of this video, you're going to know everything there is to know about the non-volley zone rule. Let's get into it. As we get into the non-volley zone rule, it's really important to understand the difference between a ground stroke and a volley. So just in case, let's review. A ground stroke looks like this. The ball has bounced before I hit it. That is a ground stroke. With a volley, I am hitting the ball out of the air. If we haven't met before, my name is Tony Roig. I'm a master teaching professional, and it's my pleasure to share this information with you. As we jump into the scenarios, first thing we got to do, let's pull out the rule book and look at the non-volley zone rule.
The non-volley zone rule comes in 2 parts. 9A provides that volleys must be initiated outside of the non-volley zone. 9B specifically provides that it is a fault if the volleying player or anything that has contact with the volleying player while in the act of volleying touches the non-volley zone.
These 4 scenarios that we're going to do are the big scenarios that have to do with the non-volley zone. They're the areas that give players the most difficulty with the non-volley zone rule. The first one we're going to do is the simplest one, which has to do with when we dink a ball that lands inside the non-volley zone, and we're going to determine whether it's a fault or not. So let me show you what that looks like. So you'll notice I was inside the volley zone, in front of the non-volley zone line at the time that I hit that shot. Question, was it a violation of the non-volley zone rule or not? And what this helps you is to frame out the non-volley zone rule in the most productive way. The best way to think about the non-volley zone rule is, the first question is you want to ask yourself is, was there a volley? Because the ball bounced before I hit it, there was not a volley. If there's not a volley, the non-volley zone rule is never in play. Therefore, no fault in this scenario. In this next scenario, I'm going to show you what it looks like when we hit the shot and then go into the non-volley zone. So it's basically a shot that looks like this. So I'm moving forward, I hit the ball, and then I come into the non-volley zone. Fault or not? Now, if you're familiar with the non-volley zone rule, you may think that this is not a really good question, but I can promise you, this question gets asked inside Facebook all the time, and we have hundreds of people commenting on this exact situation. If you use the same framework as we used for scenario number 1, if you remember, the ball that I hit bounced before I hit it. Therefore, there was no volley. If there's not a volley, you cannot have a violation of the non-volley zone rule. There can be no non-volley zone rule fault unless there's a volley involved. In this case, because the ball bounced, no possible rule violation of the non-volley zone rule. Before we move into scenario 3, important side note here. You can step into the non-volley zone anytime that you want during a rally, as long as you're not volleying the shot. The reason this is important is because oftentimes what I see is players will see a ball that's going to land very short or is going to dribble over the net, and they'll wait. They'll stand here and they're almost falling in, waiting for the ball to bounce before they move. You do not have to wait for the ball to bounce before you move into the non-volley zone. That is a commonly misunderstood part of this rule. Players think once the ball bounces, you can move in. That is incorrect. You can stand in here all day long as you don't volley the ball while you're standing here. The next time you're playing, if you see a ball that you think is going to land short or it's going to be one of those net dribblers, get into the non-volley zone right away. Don't stand here waiting for the ball to bounce. If you wait for the ball to bounce, oftentimes it's going to be too late. This next scenario is a little more tricky. We're getting in a more tricky land here about the non-volley zone rule. This is the one where I hit a volley and then I go into the non-volley zone. So I hit the volley outside of the non-volley zone, and then my momentum ends up taking me into the non-volley zone, but we're going to add a wrinkle to it. So let's pretend I'm here and I get a volley. Boom. And I hit a clean winner, but I'm a little bit off balance on my shot. The ball's bounced a bunch of times, hit the fence, and then after that, I step into the non-volley zone. Is that a fault? Or is the ball dead? No fault. The answer is, again, a little bit tricky here. This is called the momentum rule. This is rule 9C in the rules. And what the rule says is that if any part of my body as I'm hitting the volley, goes into the non-volley zone, as part of that volley, it's a fault, even if the ball is dead. So don't get distracted by the ball hit the fence, the ball bounced 3 times, doesn't matter. If in the act of the volley, I lose my balance and I fall into the non-volley zone, or my paddle falls in, or my hat or something like that, it is still a fault, even if the ball has become dead, and that's clarified in the rule. And you can think about it this way. Think about it in terms of the fault basically corrupting the beginning of the shot. The volley occurred, right, before the ball was dead. Now, the momentum rule says that when I step into the non-volley zone, the entire volley, which occurred before the ball became dead, is a fault. So in this case, we have a violation of the non-volley zone rule, i.e., a fault. Before we get into scenario 4, if you're enjoying this content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. At the Better Pickleball channel, we design content just like this to make sure you stay informed of everything having to do with pickleball. In scenario 4, we're going to look at another common area that we get questions about that involves a volley. Before we get into it, remember that every time there's a volley in the shot, that means the non-volley zone rule is at play. If there's no volley, like in scenarios 1 and 2, the non-volley zone rule can never be in play. All right, scenario 4 is the opposite of scenario 3, if you will. And what it involves is this. I've come into the non-volley zone. I've hit a dribbler. So I'm all the way in here. I've hit the dribbler. And now I'm moving backward like this. And I'm in this position here. And the ball gets hit to me. And I hit a volley like this. Now, I hit the ball. I wasn't in the volley zone when I hit the ball, right? And the volley was good. Is that a fault or not a fault? And this is a little bit tricky, sort of like the momentum was. This is Rule 9D. Rule 9D specifically says that if you've entered the non-volley zone, you must reestablish, it's called the reestablishment rule, outside the non-volley zone with both your feet before you can volley the ball and not commit a fault. In this case, because I was inside the non-volley zone, even though I was above it and I had left it as I was hitting the ball, it's still going to be a fault. Important side note here, this is not a non-volley zone violation. If I volley from here, that's perfectly fine. If both of my feet were out here and I go like this, that is fine. I'm not inside the non-volley zone right now. Being on top is not in the non-volley zone. This is being in the non-volley zone. But if I'm in here and I'm floating through the air coming out to hit it before I reestablish, that is, in fact, a fault. If you find yourself in an argument or any kind of conversation about the non-volley zone rule at your local courts, tell them you are the most knowledgeable player about the non-volley zone rules. And if they still don't believe you, send them a link to this video. Have fun, and I'll see you next time.